This is my first in-depth garden tour video on YouTube, and I can't even wait to show you guys everything that I have growing in the garden. So this is a pretty unique year of gardening for me because we actually just moved. So this is our new 240 acre property, and so this means this is a brand new garden space for me. And not only that, but it was a really unique way to do it. So I had already planted my entire garden in our previous homestead. We had a 5-acre homestead, and once we bought this place, I went, oh no, I'm gonna have to either start from scratch or figure out something else. So what I did is I dug up all of my plants and I brought them with me, and then some of it I had to start fresh. I'll go through that as we do the tour, but just keep in mind I planted all of this just 6 weeks ago, and I'm just so thankful that it's thriving and everything survived the move. If you heard some meowing, this is little Oliver. He was coming over to say hello. You want to say hi? Hello. So let's start on the left. So this is where I have all my different types of peppers. I do red picnic peppers. We're doing some habaneros, some spicy peppers because I want to try making my own hot sauce. I have a lot of poblanos. Those freeze well. Those tend to be toward the back. Now, I'm not getting much fruit yet, so I'm hoping that it'll pick up a little bit. You can see we have little bits on here. These ones are looking a little bit better, but we're still waiting on that pepper production. Now Minnesota, it doesn't get very hot, so peppers typically are not my best crop, but it's worth a try. So hoping that they'll pick up. I have a few different staking methods going on. I had a couple extra cages sitting around, so I'm using those. I also am a big fan of just staking them up. You can see I just use a stick and some twine, and that's all I need to do. Next we have the cucumbers. So I just use some fencing here and I'm just training it up. These guys are doing really well. I like to grow the pickling cucumbers. I used to also grow the slicers. Sorry, the roosters are gonna be crowing. But I realized that the slicers, they aren't very useful. They're only good for fresh eating, where the pickling cucumbers, you can use them for pickling, and they're actually really good for fresh eating as well. So I'm training all of those up the trellis. Here are a few more pepper plants. If we want to go around the back, I'll show you how the cucumbers are looking. So we're doing pretty good. I definitely need to harvest some more and start a batch of pickles for sure. And then down here, I had an extra spot. So I actually have some rutabagas growing here. I thought they could handle a little bit of the shade. I need to thin them out, but those will be tasty. Next, we have 2 different rows of tomatoes. I am so excited about my tomatoes this year. I typically have bad blight issues at our old homestead, and I'm not seeing any issues with it, so I am just thrilled. I'm hoping that I can have a good harvest. So these are a couple of just cherry tomatoes. Otherwise, most of them are your canning or paste tomatoes. So Roma tomatoes are what I like to grow. So that's largely what these 2 different rows are. So next I'm gonna go down here. You're gonna see throughout my garden a lot of different flowers. I love marigolds. We have calendula over here, and they are just interspersed. They are really great companion planting friends in the garden, so they are going to draw in beneficial pollinators, and not only that, predatory insects that are going to help keep the pest levels down in your garden. I like to keep my nightshades together, so here are my eggplants. They were a little stunted. I don't think they handled the transplant quite as well, but they are starting to take off now, so hopefully we'll get some eggplants soon. Then if we move over here, we have more of the marigolds, and then zucchini. This guy is looking good. So I have a couple little ones. I'll probably wait another day to harvest that. Zucchini, in my experience, tends to get huge, so I'm always very cautious about how much space I give it. So we're gonna give it lots of room to expand. There's a little Asian green. I've just been plopping them any place I have room. Of course, more flowers. Now these are all broccoli, and we have various stages of them maturing. I don't know if it's part of the transplant or just the variation of the plants themselves. So you can see some of the heads are just starting to form, where this one's about ready to harvest, where others I've already plucked them off. I like to keep my plants because once you harvest the head, it'll start sending out side shoots that you can continue to harvest. So the plant is not done yet once you pull off the head. So we're gonna let those keep going. And then over here is the cauliflower. So this is actually my first year growing cauliflower, and I'm still waiting on this one to produce anything. Its partner over here has already produced its cauliflower head, which was awesome. And I did pull that plant, and we have a new little broccoli plant there. Next we have Brussels sprouts. I like to do 4 different plants. They get quite tall. So these guys are in the back. This is on the north side of the garden. And these are late producers. We're not gonna get anything from our Brussels sprouts until generally October. So we'll just kind of let them go. And with that, once they get taller like this, I like to start pruning off the lower branches. So then I have this great understory space. And so I just put these new little kohlrabi, and so they're gonna enjoy a little bit of shade in the midst of the summer. And with that same strategy, I'm gonna come over here. I actually just laid some seed here for some turnips, and I've been mulching. Actually, this is a new strategy that I've been utilizing heavily this year because I knew I wouldn't have as much time to weed with everything going on in our new homestead. And it's been working really well, but it is a little trickier with seeding. So I kind of just made a open area there so that the sunlight can come through, and hopefully we'll have turnips coming up soon. And same story over here. Here's 2 more Brussels sprouts. I also seeded different turnips and radish seeds. And then as we continue our journey, we have a few cabbages. Now this one is a broccoli. Very sad looking broccoli. Hopefully something comes out of that one. And then here are our just standard cabbages. So these I'm going to be making into sauerkraut. We'll be eating some of it fresh as well. And then this is our Napa cabbage. So I'm going to use these to make some kimchi. I absolutely love kimchi. And these are looking, especially this one, we're getting pretty close. It's kind of a nice big firm head. Here is my little lettuce patch. I've already pulled some of them out. You can see these are starting to grow vertical. So that means it's starting to bolt or go to seed, which means it can have a bitter flavor to it. So I'll be pulling these soon as well, but I'm leaving them for now. And in this open area, I've planted some new little broccoli plants. We love broccoli around here, if you can't tell. So hoping to get a fall harvest out of these before it freezes. Here's more calendula, and then I have a couple celery plants here, still waiting for them to really do much. They probably didn't transplant as well as I would have liked, but hey, we're giving it a try. And then over here is my chamomile. I love this dried as a tea, so I'll just go along with my hands or my fingers and just snap them off and then dry them, and they're great in the wintertime. Next, I have a whole sea of basil. I've been going along trying to do my best to just keep harvesting and snipping off the tips so that they get this nice bushy full growth and don't bolt. So far so good. We have some rosemary. I have a few different things of parsley. We have thyme interspersed in here. This is lemongrass. Love to cook with that. This is lemon balm, another herb that I love to dry and drink as a tea. It's also great muddled in a glass of cold water for a refreshing summer drink. I have a little bit more thyme in here. This is my sage. Now it's been pretty brown. We have a lot of iron in our water, and this one in particular seems to be suffering a lot from the iron load. But since then, it's doing a lot better. The whole plant was completely brown when we started, so hoping it'll keep recovering. We have a little lettuce tucked in there. It'll appreciate the shade, which will keep it from bolting. We have more calendula, and look at all this kale. I think kale is probably my favorite thing to grow. It's very nutritious. We love to eat it, and it's so easy to grow. Look at how happy it is. Next, I have lots of onions. We love onions around here, and they store pretty well. So I have them all the way through here. Also using straw to mulch it. Now I recommend doing organic straw. I just found it on Facebook Marketplace from a local farm. So you definitely don't want to use straw that has been sprayed with chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, that type of a thing. So while they're looking great, we're still waiting on some major bulb development. It's just starting, but it's early here. We are in zone 3 Minnesota now, so hoping that these will mature before it freezes. And then at the end, I have a couple rows of shallots, and then leeks are actually a new thing that I'm growing this year. So hopefully those turn out well, followed by a little bit more marigolds. And then we have dill. We love pickles, so that means we're gonna need a lot of dill. And this is just doing lovely. I had trouble growing dill at our old homestead. It would just be small, little wimpy plants, and these are looking great. I can't even wait. We are just starting to bloom. And then we have a sea of corn. I have 5 different rows. You want at least 4 rows for adequate pollination. And then my secret is I like to do a little row of winter squash. So here in this gap of corn, I've planted a handful of different butternut squash and pumpkins, and I love it because the squash basically ends up providing a living mulch for the corn. So it's just sprawling down underneath the corn and providing a little bit of shade and moisture retention, but it's still getting enough sun that it's going to thrive. And I did do a little experiment. You can see down here, I seeded some turnips in the middle just to see if we could squeeze a little harvest in there. And then this is my saddest row, my carrots. I already had some questions on how well they do here because when we started the garden, it was very hard, compacted clay. Sorry, the roosters are crowing again. And so carrots really like that loose, deep, workable soil. We'll see if they do much. They also kind of got overrun with weeds a few times when I was just busy moving and couldn't tend to them. So I'm hoping we'll get some out of it. Next are the bush beans. I love to plant bush beans, and I like to do staggered planting so that I have a continuous harvest. These guys will be ready to harvest before long. We're starting to get flowers, so hopeful to harvest that soon. And these I just seeded a couple of weeks ago. Lastly are the potatoes. And one thing I noticed that's interesting is the plants start small and then they keep getting bigger. And then when we get to the end, they're quite a bit taller. So I'm not sure if there's a soil difference here or what's going on, but it'll be interesting once I harvest to see what's going on underneath there. Definitely mulching heavily with that since the tubers like to stay cool. And then lastly, at the very end, I just had some extra greens that I started indoors in the early summer and just plopped them there. I think it's a couple kale and mustard greens. And I know some of you are going to ask about my fencing, so I absolutely love this. I've been using electric poultry netting around my garden for about 8 years now, and it works amazing. Nobody's gotten in. Raccoons, squirrels, deer, you name it. And I actually use it around our chicken coop as well. So we just moved the chickens up. We haven't had a chance yet to make a full permanent coop yet, and it's still summer, so we can be a little bit more flexible. The meat chickens are over there, and so we're using it around the chickens as protection as well. And so far so good. Nobody has gotten the chickens as well. And the way you can power the electric poultry netting, we're doing it 2 ways. You can see that the chickens, they're using a solar power, which is awesome. Where in the garden, we're actually using power. So we do have no extension cord that has made it as far as the little garden shed. So I have it plugged in there. A common question that I ask is, how do you get in and out of here? And so what we've done is you make it the size you want, and then if you have any extra, we just kind of run it back through. Or if you can size it perfectly, have the 2 posts ending together, and then I just kind of loop them together at the top like that. So there, it's open, and then I'll just loop them. I can't do it one-handed, but bring it back together when it's time to close it back up. I'll make sure to link this fencing in the show notes if you're interested. I love this brand for multiple reasons. The posts are more sturdy than other brands I've tried. They have a fork that goes into the ground. They also have these great pickups that you can use to keep the fence from sagging on the ground, because if this blue part ever touches greens or is laying on the ground kind of sagging, it's going to totally draw too much power and could end up failing your system. So these are great to kind of keep it all propped up. And then there's these wonderful tie outs that will just keep everything up and tight. And so that's it for this July garden tour. If you'd like one in August, let me know and I'll put together another video. Thanks for being here.